document that Trump was waving around on that tape, where he's talking about how he could have declassified the document, but he didn't declassify the document, so it's still technically classified, but here it is, and he's showing it to people who don't have any sort of classification status. If that's what happened, and if Jack Smith can prove that, if he has the evidence to prove it beyond the actual tape, then presumably that will be an element of guilt. When it comes to evidence that this maintenance worker was actively wiping security footage in order to prevent Donald Trump from being indicted on precisely these sorts of charges, wipe the evidence of, for example, Donald Trump moving the documents around. Now, here's the thing about this whole case. All of this was easily avoidable. The reason to be angry at Trump here is not really his behavior so much as it is the insanity of knowing that he's got the world's biggest target on his back. He's likely to run for re-election again. And he decides that he is going to do all of this under the assumption that no one is going to come after him. The assumption of impunity here is just foolish. Again, as a person who's prominent in politics, I overpay my taxes because the last thing that I want is to be put under the scrutiny of Joe Biden's IRS. Well, Donald Trump is way more of a target than I am personally. So why in the world would he be so careless and so clumsy as to do all of these things and then do them on tape also like that? That's why you should be upset at Trump, right? The crimes themselves, like messing with the classified documents, not turning them back in. He wasn't turning them over to Russia. As I said from the very beginning, the entire case is Donald Trump likes things and then he keeps them. Donald Trump is like, here's the thing. It's a really nice thing. It's a good thing. I want it. It's mine. They call it a thing. It's a thing. Right? That's Donald Trump's. He does this all the time. I mean, he literally just had to give a bunch of antiquities back to the Israeli consulate because he had kept the antiquities. Right? It was like a bunch of like 2,000-year-old artifacts. And
let me explain to you what is happening here for some people that don't understand. First of all, I made a miscalculation, and I will accept blame for that. Being a little bit sloppy. You got to remember, I mean, there's no excuse for it, but you got to remember, I don't do this full time. I don't do this for money. I do this in my spare time. I'm extremely busy. Now, if I were doing this as a business, I would like to think that I would have spent the time to think about this more and realize that things are a little bit more complicated than they used to be. Basically, there's a split right now between who supports Trump and who supports DeSantis. Now, like I've told you many, many times, these guys don't care about anything else about other than like their money, making money and fame and getting attention, and also carrying water for the GOP, which also gives them more money and support, right? You know, they prop up the GOP. They become tools of the GOP. GOP will promote their content, right? You have major politicians that, I mean, we're now in the age of politicians being influencers. So you got a politician with millions of followers that's tweeting out your videos or giving you a shout out or coming on your show, you know, access journalism, right? That's really good for your brand. That's going to bring you more money. So outside of politics, just from a business standpoint, from a greed standpoint, you're going to want to be friendly with the GOP. However, the complication that I forgot about, because I am aware of this, is, again, the focus is not on necessarily politics, but it's on business and money, right? So the thing about it is, this is like a horse race. Which horse are you betting on? You don't own any of the horses. You don't know any of the people that are riding the horses. You don't have any investment in anything. You just showed up at this horse race and you're looking at the charts and you're looking at the stats and you're trying to decide which horse to bet on. Are you going to bet on the Trump horse or the DeSantis horse? Again, you don't give a rat's ass about Trump or DeSantis. You just want to be betting on the horse that's going to win, right? So you're looking at the way the audience is responding to Trump versus DeSantis, and you're sort of leaning in that direction, right? So there was a point in time where, you know, the establishment was trying to replace Trump with DeSantis. So then right-wing media was like, all right, we're going to bet on that horse. So they were, you know, starting to, give like negative comments about Trump. And, you know, Ben Shapiro was certainly one of those people, right? However, that failed, right? DeSantis' campaign is collapsing. I think the people have decided they want Trump, right? So these folks, these opportunists, these greedy, capitalistic opportunists are looking at the stats. The stats are saying the people like Trump, right? So that means that you need to support Trump, right? But everyone hasn't made that conclusion yet, especially with these charges coming out. There's a possibility in terms of in their minds, maybe he'll be, removed from the race because he's going to be in prison or whatever. So some people are kind of leaning towards Trump. Some are leaning towards Ron DeSantis. So things were united previously with Trump. Then people moved over to DeSantis. Some, I think, stayed with Trump. Some that moved over to DeSantis are now back with Trump. Some are in the middle that are kind of, they don't want to attack Trump too much, right? And they will promote DeSantis. DeSantis is great. He's a great governor. And they might say something kind of mild about Trump or don't really talk about it that much, right? And then people that do the reverse. It appears that Shapiro might be on the DeSantis wagon. Therefore, this is potentially a good opportunity for him to sort of go against Trump a little bit. But notice how he's doing it. He's not really going all out and attacking Trump, right? If you're a conservative, you might look at it that way, but you don't recognize the tricks that he's using. If you listen to what he said, what he's basically saying is Trump didn't really do anything of consequence. What he did is not a big deal, right? The biggest problem that you should have with him is that he was sloppy about what he did, right? So this is the equivalent of Trump robbed a bank, and Ben Shapiro is here arguing that, him robbing the bank, whatever, it's just money, no one was killed, corporations rob us all the time, the government robs us all the time. This is a norm. That's just how things are in this country. All of us are being robbed, right? The fact that Trump robbed the bank, I'm not really worried about that, right? This is what Trump does. He's a businessman. He's always trying to maximize profit. That's what, you don't think these corporations are robbing you and taking advantage of you and doing all kinds of stuff. Like, this is how business works in this country. And Trump is a businessman. He's doing what businessmen do. What you should really worry about is how sloppy he was. So basically, focus on the fact that he got caught, right? He knew he was a target. So this is like Trump already had a warrant out for his arrest for some previous robberies, right? And then he goes and does another robbery. He knows he's being watched. His phones are tapped, and they're out for blood. And then he goes and does this big, high-profile robbery. Again, the robbery is not the big deal. It's the fact that he's sloppy. Think about how disingenuous and lacking in any morals at all, any kind of morals or ethics at all, that this guy is to be making this sort of an argument. Trump had classified documents showing it in an unsecured setting. These are documents that put our country at risk, put our soldiers' lives at risk. And Ben Shapiro is saying to you that you shouldn't worry about that. That's not a big deal. You should just worry about the fact that he was sloppy, right? Sloppy, not in the sense of sloppy and putting people's lives at risk, sloppy in terms of for him to get in trouble. Think about that for a second. He's saying the only thing you should worry about is the fact that Trump made it easy for him to get caught, right? You shouldn't worry about the soldiers' lives that he put at risk, the country that he put at risk, the national security risk, right? All these classified documents. Remember Hillary Clinton, she just simply had emails on an unsecured server, right? Which put us sort of, at risk in terms of if her server was hacked or something like that, right? In that situation, in order for someone to hack her computer to get the emails, they'd have to first know that she even had the emails there. I don't think that's public information, right? She wasn't going around saying, hey, I have all these emails on my personal server. Like, how would you even know that? Yes, it was bad, right? She should have suffered consequences for it. But in comparison to actively promoting, right, this classified information to like random people, right? I don't want to be as accurate as possible. Let me not say random people, but these are people that don't have security clearances. You're in an unsecured environment, right? And we know there've been Chinese spies that have infiltrated Mar-a-Lago. Like this is just a hotbed of other countries trying to spy, right, by getting into Mar-a-Lago. In a place like that, which would, again, with that going on, you can imagine potentially there being bugs in there being spies in there being people who don't have training about classified information. I gotta tell you, man, a lot of people don't understand this kind of stuff about keeping stuff secret. Loose lips sink ships, right? A lot of people think, it's not a big deal. Now, I have the training, so I understand what the risks are. But the people he was talking to wouldn't know that. So they might tell their spouse, thinking, it's just my spouse. Well, my spouse is a spy or whatever. Like, they think like that. And they end up repeating stuff to the wrong person, right? And then it gets out to a foreign agent or something like that. And next thing you know, it leads to the death of our soldiers, right? It leads to an attack on our country in some way or another, right? But again, Ben Shapiro, don't worry about that. Just worry about the fact that he was a buffoon about it, right? Imagine for a second, let's take it even further if you still don't get it. Imagine for a second that Joe Biden did this, Obama did this, or Hillary did this. Instead of Hillary putting it on her server, imagine Hillary Clinton having a top secret document, showing it to some people in her office and just, I could have declassified it. Imagine Ben Shapiro. Think about this for a second. Be honest with yourself. Imagine Ben Shapiro making a video saying, it's not really a big deal that Hillary did this, Obama did this, Biden did it. It's not a big deal, right? What's a big deal is that they knew that the Republicans were after them, and then they did this, which, is sloppy and allowed them to get caught. That's what you should worry about. Don't worry about the fact that Obama showed those classified documents in his hotel or whatever to some random people. Don't worry about that. Can you imagine Ben Shapiro saying that? Just worry about the fact that he's so sloppy. You and I both know he would never make a video like that because Ben Shapiro has no character. He has no spine. He's nothing more than a greedy opportunist, only focused on how he can enrich himself, not concerned with the cost to the country, no loyalty to country, no loyalty to his ideology, because the stuff that he does hurts conservatism, ironically. Obviously, that's not an absolute statement. Stuff he's doing does help in terms of, for example, his support of the GOP, helped the GOP to get to a point where this decades-long project of this abortion, right, which happened recently, right, the changes that came through, getting the Supreme Court judges, people like Ben Shapiro were part of that process, right, more so in modern times than in the past, but he played his role there. But overall, Ben Shapiro is a threat to the conservative ideology, right? He allows for certain toxic elements to fester and destroy the Republican Party. And by destroying the Republican Party, that enables the Democratic Party to win elections and to do things that conservatives don't want. Every time you see the Democrats winning and them putting some bill that's like you think is socialism or whatever, keep in mind that the reason they can do that is because of people like Ben Shapiro focus on views and his own pockets over conservatism, right? He'd rather let the GOP go crazy and support and enable all this insanity, which allows the Democrats to win elections without doing much, right? Because their base sees the craziness going on that people like Ben Shapiro enable, and they say, well, I don't really like the Democrats, but I don't want those crazies in charge, right? If Ben Shapiro was a true conservative and cared about conservatism, he would be going after all the crazy toxic elements, trying to promote, people with character. Well, let's just put it as people with more character, right? Because it's going to be tough to get many really good people, but certainly you get better people than you can see that he enables, right? He'd be trying to promote the better, more sane Republicans, right? So therefore, when the Dems don't really do much for their base, and you have a sensible Republican Party, different ideology, but at least they're sensible, they're not all this chaos and trolling, then the people that don't like the Democrats will be like, you know what, these Democrats aren't really doing anything. Let me see what these Republicans have to offer. So you have people going over to the Republican Party, right? I mean, that's happened before, but you could have a lot more of that. And you could have Democrats losing for a long time. Imagine if you had a 2-term Republican president. What could be done in terms of conservatism, the values that conservatives love. But that can't happen with greedy people like Ben Shapiro carrying water for these toxic trolls that just make the GOP look bad and help the Dems to win. So if you're a true conservative, you would despise people like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, Blaze TV, Newsmax, right? These people are lying to you, misleading you, doing things that help them to get rich and betters them at the cost to you. And they're going to keep doing it as long as you guys keep supporting this behavior, right? You decide. This is Debate Me channel. Debate Me comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.